Welcome back, folks. We are removing most of the walls on the first floor of this house. We've got the kitchen one out. We've stripped this one here. This header's going to go. The stairwell comes down in the middle of this cape, basically. And so, you know, the kitchen's over here, and this was the living room. Then there was the dining room, this hallway, which is mostly just wasted space. And, you know, maybe that was the dining room in the past, but that it's since turned into been turned into a bedroom with a small renovation that you can see here. The closet was just built right onto the existing hardwood. And all this was drywall, whereas this is that heavy plasterboard. But this new homeowner would like to open this plan all up, which I understand. And so we've started by, you know, sometimes you can leave all of the walls, all the bearing walls in place. When there's a pair of them like this, because the ends that you're going to be working on and the beam you want to install is out here in the middle between the two. Unfortunately, in this area where we're putting this beam in, this wall and header, just a mirror image of this one, was right there, so it had to come down. And with taking it down, we were out from underneath two joists, and so wanting to be under those two joists, and also to maximize the dump trailer rental, we want to take as much debris out of here as we could. So we went ahead, took all these walls out, which they could have, all these could have stayed until we were finished here. But since we were taking them all, we came back with our lifting shores. I should mention that you could build a temporary wall in here. You just throw a 2x4 on the floor and one on the ceiling and cut and fit some studs in there, and you don't even have to attach it to the top or the bottom, but just pack the studs in tight and make sure they're nice and plumb, and it'll do the same sort of job that this is doing here. If you're doing a long stretch, it may be nice to throw some diagonals on that little temporary wall and pin that diagonal 2x4 at every one of the studs so that you've got racking protection. The nice thing with the lifting shores is that it affords us some adjustability, because in the end, not only do you want to support everything, but you want to, when you cut everybody free, you don't want to see it settle on the side that you're supporting with something different. It may be well supported, and there may be no danger, but it may shift downward a bit. And in fact, you could, you know, with these, you could run them up so tightly that when we cut everything free, they would actually jump up. So we want to be conscious of maintaining the plane of the floor upstairs and not going upstairs and you can see the boards go like this and not having a board sitting in there at an angle. With plywood subfloor, it would float the difference a bit less noticeably, but given that we have these boards, I'm being really careful not to change anything about these elevations while I disconnect everybody, put a beam in and reconnect them to the beam. I don't want to disturb the floor upstairs. So that being said, I'm sorry, this time of year I get it's like tradition. When I'm doing a load-bearing wall removal video series, I'm constantly clearing my throat, so you just have to deal with it. We're going to go right from this pair of top plates and the old jack that I added a block to and the old king from the doorway, go right on down to the basement beam, and we're going to go right through with a couple of glue lambs. I talked previously about making them in pieces to get them in here because they're going to be longer overall than the space is by design, and to get them up and in there, you know, you would have to take something apart. I just couldn't make my peace with making them in a couple of pieces, because as soon as you know, they go up like that, there's only one end of each piece on opposite ends of the bearing wall, and so all that that load is causing those two pieces of lumber to want to scissor past one another, and you're relying on the shear strength of the nails that are holding it all together. Will the shear strength take that? Yes. Do I want to rely on that? There's just something about it that I don't like. So as you can see, we have made room to swing up through. Now in the end, we're going to be on top of this door, on top of the rough framing and on top of the jamb, but to come, you know, to get up there, we have to swing on by everybody. So I cut a panel out above this door that accounted for the jamb 3/4 of an inch and a half of jack stud, an inch and a half of king, which is right there. And I did it on both sides. It ended up being about 4 inches from the jamb, after I took the face trim off of there. The reason I did that was because I knew I wanted to take the header out. I wanted to take the top of the jamb off and the top plates off. But when I put that stuff all back, I want to have as much of a bearing ledge to sit them back on top as possible. So I went out beyond the king, and then I cut them off there. So when I put two new ones back, which is what I'll do, is two new pieces back, it'll be sitting right back on that king again. And then the header will go in here. And now the header that was in here was a 2x6, and there was about 1.5 inch gap between it and the double top plates. So I'll either put that back in here and add a layer of 1.5 inches and then 2 more layers of 1.5 inches in the form of the top plate and just pack it solid framing lumber. Or, you know, I'll make a header that's actually rip cut, you know, out of a 2x8 or something like that, and I'll rip it to the exact dimension between the top of the jack and the bottom of the top plates. But anyway, it'll be solid wood. And I'll put that all back in after I've got both of these pieces of beam in here. What else have I had to do? Oh, I've had to dog ear a little bit. I don't know if you can see it. There's a shadow, but I took a couple inches worth of a short angle off that top and bottom edge of the beam to coerce it into going up in there. It's just me here by myself. It just barely missed this wall board on this side. I was trying to keep from damaging. You could just put the trim, I had to take the trim off the top there, but just to put it back up on top. And I sliced everything all up through here, by the way, rather than beating on it and tearing on it with a pry bar, I went in with one of these really, I call it like a fillet knife style Sawzall blade. It's designed for cutting nails off in between framing, you know, to disconnect and disassemble framing. You can slide in between lumber, especially if you hit it with the hammer. Just a bit to give yourself a little gap to work in. It'll go right in there and slice nails off real nice. So I was able to, you know, zing across the ends of the header, across underneath the header, and actually bend it like a fillet knife and get right around on the far side of the header and go right along, cutting off the nails that hold that drywall board onto the header, and then the header just popped right up and out of there. And in doing so, I was able to preserve this. You know, I already have to do a drywall patch or whatever you want to call it out here. I was trying not to do one in here. I popped through a little bit with the Sawzall blade there, but in the end, that's a totally, I mean, I'll take that over opening up this room as well. Every time you tear into a new space, it's just compounding the cost and time spent. So, and the frustration, because it's just so rewarding to be surgical. Here's our block like we used in our first video series that's just pinned with one screw, and as soon as I clear the plane of the framing, I'll spin him over, and that'll hold our, you know, that piece of LVL in there for the time being, enough to throw maybe a joist hanger on it on the side that it's going to be on, you know, 1 or 2 on there, and then that'll hold it. Then I can take the block away, and then I can weasel the other piece of lumber in there. And I basically quit because it was time to do a video. I wanted to show you how narrowly we made it in behind this wallboard. I was beating it with the dead blow hammer in here carefully, and every time I was able to send it a little further in, I could go up a little more, and then I could send it a little further, and then I could go up a little more, and a little further and up, and a little further and up. And I was getting overzealous, and I missed and broke that, which at this point will be covered by the trim if I can keep from smashing it any worse. And I might even take that piece out of there. But the point is, what I really should do is stop being such a trim carpenter when I get into things like this. Because look, we're going to go up and we're going to hit into that joist. Because even though I put the line on what I wanted for a length and I cut the line off the lumber, thinking that I was giving myself a little breathing room, this is going to come in tight to the back of that singular piece of framing that I left across the end of the stairway. And it really doesn't need to be exactly that length. So basically what I'm trying to say, what are you trying to say, Chazzy? I'm going to cut 1 inch off the end of this as it is in place. Well, no, nope, can't do it. Pull it down careful. At that point, then I'll take 3/4 of an inch off. And then I know that we'll just go right up inside of that and not have any problem. And that'll be 3/8 of an inch less bearing on both ends of it, because I'll split the difference, and it'll make no difference. And it would have made my life easier, because this would have gone right up and in place the first time, and I'll do it on the second piece now. But anyway, those are the things that I constantly drag my feet on, because you can always take more off. You can never put any back. But we'll do that. We'll put it up. We'll spin the block. We'll take our other measurement. We'll make that piece. We'll find a way to hold that up there without the block. We'll put the other piece in place. And then when we come back, we'll take a lunch, because we forgot our impact driver for our nails, and we'll come back and put our nails in all of our joist hangers. I'd like to have this up and a lot of hangers on today, and maybe even throw that framing back together above the door, although it could wait. But that's where we're at, right? And with that, when it's completely finished in terms of structural integrity and not covered with drywall or anything, we can take these right out of here and see that we have a nice solid structure then. And then finally smash this all back from the pencil line, and we're gonna have to go somewhere else with that. We'll talk about it when we get there and take this all back and out of here and throw that in the demo trailer for round 2. And but it's pretty good. Like I said, inside of a week we've gotten quite a bit done. All right, stay tuned. We'll see you.